12 to 17. Listen to part of a lecture in a music class.
It seems like all forms of modern music include sounds that are produced electronically. However, it's important to note that electronic music is also a distinct art form, and one of the most popular genres of this type of music is electronica. So, what is electronica? Well, this term started being used in the 1990s to refer to the various styles of electronic music that were becoming popular, such as techno music and house music. Do you have a question?
I just wanted to clarify something. Are you saying that electronica is dance music?
That's part of it. But electronica also includes music that is, well, that's not really suitable for dancing. For example, one subgenre is ambient music. This is electronic music that is intended to, to function almost as background music. It doesn't have catchy rhythms or melodies. Anyway, in the late 1980s and early 90s, electronica was an underground art form. It was rarely played on the radio or in major performance venues. Some critics even claimed that it wasn't really music.
That seems like kind of an extreme position. Why did they feel that way?
That's a good question. The main issue was that electronica breaks many of the rules regarding song structure. Basic elements, such as verses and choruses, are missing, for example. In addition, it isn't created by musicians who play conventional instruments. And, of course, electronica often involves sampling. Small sections of other songs are included in a piece. These critics found electronica confusing, and so they didn't know how to react to it. It didn't match their expectations about how music should sound. But this is actually what appealed to the early fans of the genre. Electronica was an entirely new form of music. It was all about creating unique sounds and audio effects, and these were combined in unusual ways to arouse emotional and even physical responses in listeners. To do this, artists took full advantage of new music technologies. One of the most important was the synthesizer. Is everyone familiar with this instrument?
It's sort of like an electronic piano, right?
Well, they're similar in appearance. Both have keyboards. But a synthesizer produces a much wider range of sounds. It can convincingly imitate other instruments or create totally new sounds. This is why it was so vital to early electronica artists. Another important technological development involved the editing of sounds. There were computer programs that allowed musicians to manipulate recorded sounds. This enabled them to create very distinctive music. Now, by the late 90s, electronica had entered the mainstream, and it had a significant impact on other forms of music. Major pop stars began incorporating electronica into their songs, and, after a while, other musical combinations started appearing, and they were somewhat surprising. I mean, even punk music showed signs of being influenced by electronica. In fact, electronica became so popular that it was even used in commercials, a practice that continues today.
That's true. It seems like every time I see a car commercial on TV, there's some sort of upbeat electronic music playing in the background.
Right, and it makes sense when you think about it. On the one hand, electronica is associated with youth and energy. On the other, there's nothing controversial about it. No chance of inappropriate lyrics or anything in a commercial. Why wouldn't an advertiser use it?
Now get ready to answer the questions. You may use your notes to help you answer.
12. What is the main topic of the lecture? (13) Why does the professor mention ambient music? 14. Why did some critics claim that electronica was not real music?
"15. What does the professor imply about early fans of electronica?" "16. Why was the synthesizer important to the development of electronic music?"
Listen again to part of the lecture, then answer the question.
On the one hand, electronica is associated with youth and energy. On the other, there's nothing controversial about it. No chance of inappropriate lyrics or anything in a commercial. Why wouldn't an advertiser use it?
17. What does the professor mean when he says this?
Why wouldn't an advertiser use it?
Listen to part of a conversation between a professor and a student.
Excuse me, Professor. You wanted to see me?
Ah, Lori, yes, come in. I wanted to speak to you. You see, I think you give very detailed answers during class when I ask you specific questions, and you've been doing fairly well on your assignments. But why aren't you participating more actively in my American literature seminar? You know, your participation affects your final grade.
To be honest, Professor, it's my first time taking a seminar like this, so I'm not really used to this style of class. I'm more used to classes with, hundreds of students listening to the teacher, and it's easy for me to answer questions when it's just facts. But giving my opinion is something different entirely.
Well, I'd rather hear you say something, anything, instead of just sitting back and letting everyone else talk. Anyway, I'm sure you have opinions on the topics we discuss. Don't you ever feel like contributing to the discussions?
I don't know. I guess other students have more background in this subject. They can give better answers than I can. And, I'm actually majoring in mathematics. Math problems always have one correct answer, you know? It's comforting to me. But literature? It's not like that. I mean, it seems so subjective. You know how every person has a different perspective, and so there's no real agreement about anything. And like I said, it's hard when you don't have background in a subject.
I understand where you're coming from, but you have to realize, well, just because other students have more background knowledge than you, It doesn't necessarily mean they will be correct or have a more valid point of view. The whole point of the seminar is the students learn and benefit from each other. So I'd like you to actively take part in my seminar from now on. You want to do well in my class, don't you?
Yes, I do.
And I think you find the subject itself interesting too, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't have signed up in the first place. Or you would have dropped the course a long time ago.
That's true. I do enjoy the stuff we're reading and discussing. I mean, I don't know that much about literature, but I want to learn to appreciate it.
Here, let me give you a quick example. You remember last week's seminar when I finished talking about different movements that emerged through American literature?
I think so. You mentioned realism and naturalism.
That's right. Well, I was going to continue discussing them next class. As I said, although the realists and the naturalists had the same goal, describing things objectively rather than idealizing them like the romanticists did, they achieved it in slightly different ways. Did you notice any differences between the two readings I assigned?
Oh, sure. The naturalist writer seemed to be less sympathetic towards human beings than the realist one.
Yes, that's an excellent point. See, this is exactly what you should bring to the seminar.
I'll try, Professor. Hopefully I won't freeze up.
Now get ready to answer the questions. You may use your notes to help you answer. 18. Why does the professor want to see the student? 19. What does the professor imply about the student's performance in his literature class? 20. What does the student imply about literature? 21. According to the professor, what is the objective of the seminar? 22. Why does the professor mention realism and naturalism?